2020 Democrats and the Congressional Black Caucus are defending Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar after the president posted a video combining footage of the 9/11 terror attacks and Ilhan Omar's comments about September 11th. We're not going to air that video because it has clear Islamophobic connotations, but I want to play for you what Ilhan said just last month at a California chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CAIR.
Far too long, we have lived with the discomfort of being a second-class citizen. And frankly, I'm tired of it, and every single Muslim in this country should be tired of it. CAIR was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Well, for the record, CAIR was actually founded in 1994. Critics accuse the Congresswoman of dismissing the seriousness of the September 11th attacks. The controversy escalated when the president tweeted out a video mixing footage of 9/11 with her comments, with the caption, "We will never forget," a common refrain about 9/11 that also refers to the Holocaust. The White House insisted the president's tweet was not an incitement of violence.
Certainly, the president is wishing no ill will and certainly not violence towards anyone. But the president is absolutely and should be calling out the Congresswoman for her not only one time, but history of anti-Semitic comments.
So in a statement, Omar said she is facing an increase in death threats since the president posted the video, and added, "Violent rhetoric and all forms of hate speech have no place in our society, much less from our country's commander-in-chief." Well, that didn't stop the president from continuing his attacks on Omar. In a tweet today, he called Omar, quote, "out of control." So why is the president so focused on a freshman congresswoman? Ilhan Omar is no stranger to controversy. She made comments that echo anti-Semitic tropes, and just last week, she accused White House advisor Stephen Miller, who is Jewish, of being a white nationalist. But there's another reason the president is targeting Ilhan Omar. The president is using Omar to revive the same Islamophobic tropes that he used throughout the 2016 campaign. This is the man who suggested falsely that President Obama was a Muslim. This is the man who made up an absolute lie about seeing Muslims cheering after the collapse of the Twin Towers.
Hey, I watched when the World Trade Center came tumbling down. And I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering as that building was coming down.
No evidence of that whatsoever. Then just weeks after that outrageous claim, his proposal to stop Muslims from entering the United States.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
A few months later, he made this false and bigoted statement about Muslims.
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
The president even fought with a Gold Star family, insinuating that the mother of a fallen Muslim veteran didn't speak at the DNC because she wasn't allowed to.
If you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me.
Not to mention his threat to monitor mosques, to create a database of Muslims in the U.S. I could go on and on. You heard the press secretary say that this was about calling out anti-Semitism. But this is the same president who said this about white supremacist violence in Charlottesville.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did.
Some of those very fine people were chanting this.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
And the president looks the other way when it comes to members of his own party. Take Congressman Steve King, for example, who told the New York Times, "White nationalists, white supremacists, Western civilization, how did that language become offensive?" There were other comments as well. Congress stripped King of his committee assignments. But this is what the president had to say about him.
I haven't been following it. I really haven't been following it.
So where's the outrage? The president's outrage is selective. But let's go back to Congresswoman Omar. Ilhan Omar represents a number of firsts for America. She's one of the first 2 Muslim women to be elected to Congress, the first Somali American congresswoman, the first congresswoman to wear a hijab, a symbol of the Muslim faith. All of this makes her a target for a president who is all too happy to stoke fear of Muslims for political gain. The president is treating Omar just like he's always treated Muslims. Lot to talk about. Wajahat Ali, Alice Stewart, Max Boot. Next. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says she's experienced an increase in death threats since the president posted a video combining comments she made with footage of the 9/11 terror attacks. Let's bring in now Wajahat Ali, Alice Stewart, and also Max Boot. Good evening to all of you. Wajahat, you said that these attacks on the Congresswoman Omar, the president is being true to form. What do you mean by that?
He's true to form. This is who he is. He incites hate and fear and violence against people of color, against immigrants, against those who are refugees, and especially against Muslims. I appreciate that you actually connected the dots, Don, before the break and showed his rich history of Islamophobia. It's there. He's racist. He's not racially charged. He doesn't have racial trip-ups. This is who he is. And he wants to deflect. We have the Mueller report redacted coming out. The president allegedly tried to bribe an official, which is illegal, last week to shut down the border. And he thinks, you know what, this will be a good distraction, and I'm going to rile up my base. And what I'm going to do is incite hate against a congresswoman who just a little bit over a week ago has received a death threat. The man was charged, and the man is a Trump supporter. After this happened, Donald, what did Donald Trump do? A day later, he incited hate against her again in a speech. And what does he do? He takes this vile video, which I'm so grateful you did not share, which is the worst Islamophobic trope. As a Muslim, let me say this. The last 18 years, there has been a collective responsibility placed upon innocent American Muslim citizens, making us seem guilty for the violent actions of 19 terrorists. We're always guilty by virtue of our religion, and we're always deemed suspects and threats. And no matter what we do, Don, we are never seen as equal citizens. We're never seen as innocent, and we always have to defend ourselves and engage in a condemn-a-thon. It's ridiculous, and that's why this is Donald Trump being true to form. All
right, so in the interest of time, I have to get my guests in, other guests in. So listen, let me bring Alice in. Alice, 9/11 is a whole lot more than some people did something. And, if you want to criticize a congresswoman on that, I think that is fair, okay? Maybe she should have couched it differently. But do you think the president's attacks are about more than what she said?
The president's attacks are all on what she said, not just in that situation, but in the past. I mean, 9/11 is the worst terror attack in the world, and she calls it, as you said, something that someone did. And in addition to that, she has repeatedly made anti-Semitic comments, saying that people that support Israel are only doing it for the Benjamins, and she's spoken out against the Jewish people. And look, the reality is, simply because she has a soft spot for terrorists and a blind spot for our relationship to Israel doesn't mean that everyone needs to keep their mouth shut about it. And it's not just the president's responsibility,
Shameful,
but it's
Alice.
legitimate.
Shameful.
It is legitimate for him to speak up, because the Democrats are not. And Waj, listen, I have joined you many times in denouncing this president's hateful comments, and I have said exactly what you have said. I don't understand why you and other Democrats cannot condemn this hateful language that the Congresswoman is using. It makes absolutely no sense, and they are not standing up to her and allowing her to continue to do so.
Please respond, but I have to get Max in. Go ahead, Wajahat.
Which is why it's so shameful. Which is why it's so shameful that today you've completely done a 180 and supported Donald Trump's Islamophobia and bigotry. You know this is hateful. You know this is wrong. You've seen the video. You know it's taken out of context. You know she was telling American Muslims to stand up and be citizens and reject Islamophobia. And the irony is America, and you included, are putting Islamophobia on her. And you know she has death threats. And this is disgusting, Alice, because I expected more from you of all people.
Look, it's hard to take something out of context when we played it from start to finish. We heard the words out of her very own mouth, so it's just ingenuous to say that it was taken out of context. And those comments, in addition to the others that she has said, need to be condemned by Democrats across the board.
Max, weigh in. What do you think here?
Well, my view, Don, is that Donald Trump does not have a health care plan. He does not have an immigration plan. but he does have a plan for demonizing the Democrats and making them out to be some kind of anti-American, socialistic, anti-Israel party. And sadly, I think all too many Democrats are cooperating with Donald Trump's strategy. You see that with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling herself a socialist. You see that with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar attacking Israel supporters, engaging in classic anti-Semitic tropes. In this particular case, I don't think that she was justifying or defending 9/11, but she was certainly describing it in a way that is very peculiar, saying some people did something. That's not the right way to describe one of the worst days in American history. And of course, Donald Trump jumped all over it with his long history of Islamophobia, anti-Muslim bigotry, which we've been talking about on this program. And of course, he is politicizing 9/11, which should be a sacred day in our history. And it's disgusting the way he's trying to use it for political advantage. But sadly, I fear that he will derive political advantage from it. And Democrats are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because they cannot abandon Ilhan Omar, because then they will be seen to be giving in to bigotry. But the more they defend Ilhan Omar, the more they play into Donald Trump's hands and let her define the party, which is not what they want to do going into 2020.
Mm-hmm. Is she giving him ammo?
Yeah, she is giving them ammo. I think it's not just her. I think it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Don, and others. And that's why I think Nancy Pelosi, who is very smart and shrewd here, is trying to separate the rest of the party from a few of these freshman members. She was just quoted, for example, today saying, "I'm not a socialist. Very few people in the Democratic Party are socialists. This is not what the party is about." But that is how Donald Trump is trying to redefine the Democratic Party, and some of these members are playing into his hands.
That's what the research actually shows, that most Democrats are moderate Democrats and not socialists. Listen, here's what the New York Times is reporting, Wajahat, that Trump has privately said his language about Muslims have been received well among his base. His advisors and friends acknowledge that, in effect, he is trying to recreate some of the same conditions of the 2016 campaign. What do you think of that?
That's exactly why he's doing it, and I'm just really saddened to hear my fellow panelists today. I mean, you can criticize Ilhan Omar all you want about her comments, about her policies, but this is a moment where we have a president with a rich history of demonizing immigrants, refugees, Muslims. We know with his campaign trail, wherever he goes, violence, uptick follows in violence. And you guys are sitting here rationalizing and kind of both siding and saying, you know, she did say some comments, so I guess, you know what, go ahead, villainize her.
You cannot accuse me of being...
It's shameful. Max, I wanted you to have, I want a moral stance here. Let me just finish. This is a moral opening of leadership here. We can stand up against Donald Trump and his use of hate and fear against Ilhan Omar, and side by side, Max and Alice, you can criticize her all you want, but this is a mother, and this is a woman, and this is a congresswoman, and we have death threats against her, and Donald Trump has doubled down on it, and as public reporting, as Don just said, is he's doing it. He's doing it. And if she gets hurt, what are you guys going to say?
I've spent years denouncing Donald Trump's bigotry and hatred, and I denounce his use of 9/11 as a political attack tool. I think what he's doing is very wrong, but I also think that what Ilhan Omar is doing is wrong, and she has not apologized for some of her anti-Semitic outbursts, and I think she is a very unfortunate symbol for the Democratic Party, which is what Donald Trump is trying to make her out to be.
And not only has she not apologized, the Democrats allow her to continue to engage in this anti-Semitic behavior. And Waj, you are doing just the same, and that's really unfortunate.
Shameful. This is shameful.
I got to go. Thank you all. And thanks for watching our coverage.